When was the last time you truly paused and asked yourself, am I living a life that's genuinely mine, or just one crafted by the expectations of others? Carl Jung, the great pioneer of analytical psychology and a master of deep psychology, teaches us something that strikes right into the heart. Choosing yourself is not selfish. It's necessary for the health of your soul. In today's busy world, you wake up and are instantly swept into a flood of demands, emails, deadlines, family, social roles, and the endless noise of social media. All of this pulls you away from your own mind and consciousness, leaving you disconnected from the psychological shadow, the hidden parts of yourself that Jung urged us to integrate, not ignore. You see, every time you put someone else's needs before your own in a way that erases your truth, you quietly tell yourself, my voice doesn't matter. But here's the deeper psychological truth. Your soul, your inner compass, is constantly trying to guide you, even when society's noise drowns it out. Maybe you've had moments where you lay awake at night, feeling restless, unsure why you're so drained even though you seem to be doing everything right. That's not coincidence. That's the psychology of the soul whispering to you, trying to pull your attention inward. Think about a modern example. A friend of mine, Sarah, was a successful marketing executive, always praised for her achievements, always smiling. But deep down, she was miserable because she longed to be an artist, not a corporate ladder climber. One day she finally asked herself, whose life am I living? That moment of radical honesty marked the start of her transformation. She quit her job, pursued art, and though the road was rocky, she says she's never felt more alive. So, let me ask you, what is your subconscious trying to tell you right now? What have you been ignoring in your own psychological shadow that might actually hold the key to your freedom? Carl Jung's work reminds us that deep psychology is not just academic, it's a practical guide for reclaiming your authentic self. By tuning into your mind and consciousness, by facing the truths you've buried, you begin the journey of wholeness. And here's the lesson you should take with you. Your soul will never stop nudging you toward your true path. The longer you resist, the louder the unrest becomes. Choosing yourself is not an act of rebellion. It's an act of alignment with your deepest truths. So take a moment today, listen inward, and dare to answer the call your soul has been whispering all along. Now, take a deep breath and really reflect. How often have you made choices lately that come straight from your authentic self? And how often have you been ruled by fear? Fear of letting people down, fear of stepping outside what's normal, fear of discomfort, or fear of leaving behind the familiar. Carl Jung teaches us that when our decisions don't come from our inner truth, they create only confusion and disconnect within us, making us feel more lost the further we drift from who we truly are. But here's something important to clarify. Choosing yourself doesn't mean shutting out others or becoming selfish. It means realizing that the best version of you, the one that can offer real love, strength, and presence to the world, is the version at peace with itself. This is where the psychology of the soul becomes so crucial. Self-love, as Jung explored, is not indulgence or escape. It's the solid foundation for all genuine human connection. When you prioritize your mind and consciousness, when you center yourself in your own truth, something fascinating happens. You begin to attract people and situations that resonate with your true nature. It's almost as if the universe, or maybe your own psychological shadow, responds to your alignment by clearing away what no longer helps you grow and making space for what does. Let me tell you a modern story to bring this to life. James, a software engineer I know, spent years pushing himself to meet every deadline, to be the perfect team player, to impress his bosses, even though what he really longed for was to create his own tech startup. Every time he felt drained, he told himself, this is just what life is, sacrifice. But one day, after months of anxiety and sleepless nights, he finally asked himself, what if my exhaustion isn't just stress? What if it's my soul crying out? That was the moment everything shifted. James began the hard work of listening inward, facing the parts of himself he had buried under ambition and people-pleasing, his shadow side, as Jung would call it. He realized that, until he made peace with those parts, he'd never be whole. Let me ask you, what part of your own shadow have you been avoiding? What emotions, desires, or truths have you buried because they felt too uncomfortable or too disruptive? The path to true freedom, as Carl Jung reminds us, is not about becoming perfect. It's about integrating all the pieces of who we are, even the messy or painful ones. Deep psychology teaches us that wholeness comes when we stop fighting ourselves and start accepting every part, light and dark. This journey takes bravery, patience, and constant self-reflection, but the reward is extraordinary. You gain clarity, a renewed sense of purpose, and an inner peace so strong that no external storm can shake you. You gain the power to say no without guilt, to walk your path without needing constant approval, and most importantly, you gain the freedom to live as your true self. So here's your takeaway today. The answers you've been searching for outside, in books, in other people's opinions, in society's expectations, have always been inside you. The question is, are you willing to pause, listen, and act on what your unconscious is trying to tell you? Because when you choose yourself, above all else, you don't just change your life, you transform your entire experience of existence. One of the hardest things you'll ever do in life is listen to your own intuition, especially when it nudges you toward a path that threatens everything you've built and believed in. Yet Carl Jung teaches us that ignoring these inner signals is not strength, but a betrayal of the self, a denial of the psychology of the soul. Maybe for you, it's a relationship that no longer brings life or joy, a job that drains every ounce of your energy but feels impossible to leave, or a dream you've been chasing, not because it excites your mind and consciousness, but simply because it looked right on paper or made others proud. But here's the truth. To choose yourself is to summon the courage to release what no longer resonates. And no, that's not easy. We cling to the familiar because change terrifies us. We repeat the old saying, better the devil you know than the one you don't. But Jung invites you to challenge this by seeing change not as a loss, but as a doorway into your most authentic, integrated self, the self that dares to face its psychological shadow and walk through discomfort to transformation. So let me ask you directly, what in your life are you holding on to out of fear rather than love? What relationships, beliefs, or habits do you cling to just because you're scared of what might happen if you let go? Maybe you think releasing these things means failure or defeat, but the deeper loss comes when you sacrifice your inner peace just to keep something hollow alive. And here's the pivotal moment. Are you ready to truly choose yourself? Choosing yourself isn't selfishness. It's an act of profound love, of deep respect for the being you are at your core. And for far too long, society has taught us the lie that prioritizing yourself is a betrayal of others. But in reality, when you finally align with your truth, you become more capable of authentic love and connection. I want to share the story of Emily, a friend of mine who was once stuck in a corporate job she hated, staying only because her family praised her stability. But deep down, she longed to become a writer for years. She silenced that voice until the weight of disconnection made her sick with anxiety. One day, she finally gathered the strength to leave, and although the transition was hard, she now says her life is richer and more meaningful than she ever dreamed possible. So, I ask you again, what would happen if you stopped sacrificing your authenticity for the comfort of others? Carl Jung spoke of synchronicity, the mysterious but undeniable way your inner world and outer world reflect each other. And when you begin to live from your truth, your surroundings shift. The people who genuinely value you stay, and those who drain your energy fall away. It's not magic, it's alignment, a restructuring of your life to match your soul's deepest call. But none of this unfolds without radical honesty, without facing the truth of where you've been hiding, suppressing, or pretending. And the lesson here is this: the moment you courageously choose yourself, you set into motion a chain of transformation not only inside, but all around you. So today, Dare to pause, ask the hard questions, and step forward, not in fear, but in the powerful, liberating embrace of who you truly are. Choosing yourself is not just about making bold moves or setting firm boundaries. It's also about facing the uncomfortable truths from your past with honesty and compassion. Because as Carl Jung teaches us through the lens of deep psychology and analytical psychology, your authenticity is not a fixed destination, but a continuous journey of growth, learning, and self-discovery within the vast landscape of your mind and consciousness. Maybe you've made choices that didn't reflect who you really are, or maybe you've allowed people to cross your boundaries because you feared disappointing them. Maybe you said yes, when every part of your psychology of the soul was screaming, no. But here's what matters most. This is not a reason to judge or punish yourself. It's an invitation to recalibrate and make a different choice moving forward. Jung reminds us that the path to wholeness is filled with resistance, that the psychological shadow, the hidden parts of ourselves we fear or suppress, will challenge us. But it's precisely when we step beyond the comfort of old patterns that true transformation unfolds. I want you to think about a modern example. My friend Alex, a talented musician, spent years in a corporate job because it was the responsible choice, pushing his passion aside until the weight of his unlived life became unbearable. And when he finally chose himself and left the job to pursue music, people criticized him. Some friends drifted away, and his family worried. But over time, Alex found a new circle of supporters who valued him not for his job title, but for his authenticity. And now he says he's never felt more alive or connected. So, let me ask you, what are you holding on to today that no longer serves your soul? And what would change if you gave yourself permission to let it go? When you choose yourself, it doesn't mean isolating or rejecting others. It means your relationships deepen, because you stop chasing shallow approval and start seeking genuine, soul-nourishing connection. And here's the beautiful part. The right people will stay, not because they need you to be someone you're not, but because they value you as you truly are. Jung often spoke of how the psyche projects its inner state onto the outer world, meaning, if you live in self-rejection, you'll encounter rejection. But if you choose yourself and embrace your authenticity, you'll watch your world shift to mirror that inner alignment. And no, this isn't magic or trickery. It's the profound interplay between inner healing and external transformation. Of course, this process doesn't happen overnight. It takes patience, commitment, and the ability to hold firm even when you stumble. Because there will be days when old habits resurface, when you question whether you're doing the right thing. But this is where the real test lies. Can you stay loyal to your choice, even when it's hard or lonely? We live in a world that glorifies sacrifice, where pouring yourself out for others is seen as noble. But what good is sacrifice when it empties you so completely that you have nothing left to give? Choosing yourself is not selfish, it's necessary. Because only when you are whole and aligned with your truth can you offer love, strength, and support from a place of abundance rather than depletion. So, I challenge you today. Dare to choose yourself, not just once, but every single day, in the small moments and the big ones. And watch how your life begins to unfold in ways you never thought possible. Because when you choose yourself above all else, you don't just change your life, you transform your entire experience of living. And that, as Jung would tell you, is the real journey of the soul. Carl Jung taught us a truth that cuts straight to the heart. You cannot give what you do not possess, meaning, if you sacrifice your happiness, your energy, or your inner peace just to please others, what you offer them isn't real or sustainable, and sooner or later, that imbalance shows up in your life as emotional exhaustion, dissatisfaction, or an aching sense of emptiness. So I invite you to pause for a moment and reflect on your current relationships. How many of them genuinely uplift you, inspire you, and bring you peace? And how many leave you feeling drained, confused, or emotionally depleted? Because in deep psychology and analytical psychology, Jung invites us to understand that relationships aren't just social ties, they are profound mirrors of the mind and consciousness, reflecting back to us the beliefs, emotional patterns, and psychological shadow we carry within. If you find yourself constantly letting others cross your boundaries, it's often not because they're simply bad people, but because a part of you hasn't yet learned how to protect and honor your own well-being. And setting boundaries, as Jung emphasized, is not an act of selfishness. It is an act of radical self-love that respects the psychology of the soul, reminding you that when your unconscious signals discomfort or exhaustion, it's telling you the relationship or situation isn't aligned with your true essence. Let me tell you a modern story. A friend of mine, Maria, was always known as the helper in her circle, endlessly available to friends, family, and coworkers, saying yes to every request until she was running on empty. And it wasn't until her health began to falter and she faced severe burnout that she finally paused and asked herself, "What am I giving when I have nothing left inside?" This was her turning point. The moment she began setting boundaries not to push people away, but to preserve the parts of herself that mattered most. And as a result, the relationships that truly valued her deepened, while the ones built on her constant sacrifice faded away. So let me ask you, are you listening to the signals your unconscious is sending you about which connections nourish you and which ones quietly drain you? When you choose yourself, when you begin saying no to what doesn't serve your growth, you're not closing doors. You're opening the door to a more authentic, meaningful life. Because as Jung described, this is when your intuition awakens. That inner compass you may have ignored under the noise of external demands starts to guide you with clarity, helping you make choices that not only make logical sense, but also feel deeply right in your gut. But here's the key to hear that voice. You must step away from the need for approval, from the weight of societal expectations, and dare to trust yourself, because no one outside you can know what your soul truly needs. When you decide to choose yourself, you send a powerful message to the universe. I am ready to live in alignment with my truth. And the universe answers, not by handing you a problem, free life, but by aligning the people, opportunities, and experiences around you to mirror your authentic state. And this is where synchronicity, one of Jung's most beautiful concepts, begins to show itself. Those perfectly timed encounters and events that are not random at all, but a reflection of your inner alignment. The lesson here is simple, yet profound. By choosing yourself, by daring to honor your deep psychology, analytical psychology, psychological shadow, and the wisdom of the psychology of the soul, you step into a life where even the challenges become meaningful, where growth feels natural, and where your external world shifts to support the authentic, whole person you were always meant to be. So today, I encourage you, take the small but brave steps to choose yourself, and watch as your life transforms in ways you never thought possible. When you are truly in harmony with yourself, something extraordinary begins to unfold. Carl Jung teaches us that the mind and consciousness are not isolated forces but deeply connected to the world around us. So when you honor your authentic inner world, the external world starts to align with you in ways that once felt impossible, and suddenly the right doors open, the right people appear, and life seems to flow with a natural rhythm that surprises you. But here's where many people stumble. They believe that once they choose themselves, everything will become easy. Yet Jung reminds us that real transformation always comes with resistance, because the psychological shadow, the hidden parts of yourself you're trying to integrate, will stir up fears, doubts, and old habits just when you're trying to break free, and you'll feel the pull of familiar patterns, the weight of others' expectations, the temptation to slip back into a version of yourself that no longer serves your growth. Let me share the story of Mark, a man I know who spent years in a prestigious corporate role, respected and admired but secretly miserable, because his real passion was environmental work. When Mark finally chose himself and left his secure job to join a sustainability startup, the backlash was immediate. His parents were worried, his friends were skeptical, and even he faced sleepless nights wondering if he had made a mistake. But each time he recommitted to his choice, each time he reminded himself that his inner peace mattered more than external approval, he grew stronger. And today, Not only has Mark built a thriving career aligned with his deepest values, but he's surrounded by a community that supports and celebrates his authenticity. So I ask you, what old version of yourself are you still clinging to out of fear? And what could open up for you if you dared to let it go? Remember, the key to navigating this journey is clarity. When you know what you truly value and the kind of life you want to build, you can make choices that align with your soul. And as you do, the world around you begins to shift, reflecting your inner alignment back to you. Jung spoke of synchronicity, those perfectly timed encounters and events that aren't just luck, but the natural response of the universe to your authenticity. And while the road will have challenges, every time you choose your truth over your fears, you reinforce your connection to the psychology of the soul, and you send a clear message to the universe. I am ready to live fully, aligned with who I am becoming. The beauty is that while this might feel like a lonely journey at first, as you walk your path, the right people, those who resonate with your truth, who support your evolution, will naturally find their way to you. And together, you create a life not just of success, but of genuine fulfillment. So here's the lesson. Every time you choose to stay stuck where you no longer find joy, you are shutting the door to a life that could transform you in ways you can't yet imagine. But every time you bravely choose yourself, even when it's hard, you open the space for deep, meaningful change. And that is the real power of embracing the teachings of Carl Jung and the profound insights of deep psychology, analytical psychology, and the wisdom of your own mind and consciousness. When you reach the point where the people in your life embrace you exactly as you are, without asking you to shrink or change just to fit in, you experience something profound, because these are the people, as Carl Jung explains through deep psychology and analytical psychology, who have also chosen to live in alignment with their own truth. And when you walk this path, something inside you shifts forever. Life no longer feels like a constant uphill battle. Decisions that once left you frozen in doubt now come with clarity and quiet confidence. And most importantly, you discover a deep sense of peace. A peace that no longer depends on whether the world outside approves of you. Because as Jung taught, true peace is a state that can only rise from within, rooted in honoring your needs, respecting your boundaries, and living in full alignment with your deepest values. But here's what makes this journey even more powerful. It's not just about your own fulfillment. When you live authentically, you inspire others to do the same, and your courage becomes a beacon for those still searching for their own way. Just like my friend Lena, who spent years working in finance, outwardly successful but inwardly empty, until one day she decided to leave it all behind and start a wellness practice focused on helping others heal. And while people initially thought she was crazy to leave such a stable career, over time, her bold choice inspired several colleagues to reconsider their own paths, and she became proof that when you align with the psychology of the soul, you create a ripple effect far beyond yourself. So let me ask you, what would your life look like if you let go of the relationships, commitments, and expectations that no longer serve you, the ones that drain your energy, that pull you away from your mind and consciousness, that silence your authentic voice? Can you picture the freedom, the lightness, the sense of clarity you would feel? This isn't just some unattainable dream or wishful thinking. It's fully within your reach if you're willing to choose yourself, to make space for what truly matters, instead of clinging to what no longer fits. And in doing so, you are not losing anything of real value. In fact, you are creating a life filled with purpose, joy, and meaning, a life that feels alive. This is the transformation Carl Jung wanted us to discover. The realization that the true shift begins the moment we stop searching outside ourselves for what has always been within. The moment we choose to live authentically, embracing not the version of ourselves we were conditioned to be, but the version we were meant to become. And when this happens, something extraordinary unfolds. You begin to feel truly alive, no longer trapped by the weight of others' expectations, no longer bound by a rigid society telling you how you should live, but free to walk your own path, guided by the wisdom of your own deep psychology, your analytical understanding of the psychological shadow, and the limitless power of your mind and consciousness. So today, I invite you to take the brave step of asking, am I ready to stop living for others and start living for the truest, most vibrant version of myself? Because that is where your real transformation and your real freedom begins. When you finally start tuning in to that quiet inner voice, the one that has been whispering to you all along, urging you to look deeper and reminding you that something greater awaits. If only you have the courage to pursue it, you step into a feeling of liberation that is truly priceless, like a heavy weight has been lifted off your shoulders, allowing you to breathe fully, deeply, and freely, maybe for the first time in years. Yet Carl Jung, the master of deep psychology and analytical psychology, reminds us that this kind of freedom doesn't come easy, because it demands great courage to face not only the external pressures and expectations shaping your life, but also the internal fears, doubts, and limiting beliefs rooted in your own psychological shadow and the depths of your mind and consciousness. You know that persistent voice inside that whispers, what if I'm not good enough? What if I fail? What if I disappoint the people I love? Jung teaches us that this voice is not your truth. It's only an echo, a leftover imprint from past conditioning and experiences you've absorbed over the years. And every single time you choose to confront it, every time you act in spite of the fear, you chip away at those false limitations, creating space for something new and authentic to emerge. Let me share a modern story with you. My friend Ethan, a graphic designer, spent years trapped in a cycle of overworking and people pleasing, constantly taking on projects he didn't love, just to meet others' expectations. But when his health broke down and his creativity dimmed, he finally realized he had to confront the fear that had ruled him, the fear of saying no, of disappointing others. And when he did, he gradually began to reclaim his passion, working only on projects that aligned with his values. And now not only has his career flourished, but he feels a profound fulfillment simply in being himself. So let me ask you, what invisible chains have you allowed to hold you back? And what would your life look like if you dared to break free? The true power of choosing yourself has nothing to do with controlling or dominating others. It comes from reconnecting with your authentic self, that silent, unshakable part of you that has always known who you are and what you need. And when you align with this part, nothing and no one can pull you off your path. And the beauty of this process is that it doesn't just transform your personal life, it also transforms the lives of those around you. Because when you stand in your truth, you become a living example of authenticity. And you inspire others not by preaching or forcing change, but simply by encouraging them to question their own beliefs, confront their own fears, and step into their own truth. This is something Carl Jung understood deeply. Individual transformation creates a ripple effect, a shift in collective consciousness. Because when we live from the truth of our soul, our relationships change, our communities evolve, and even the world begins to shift. But be prepared. This journey is not a straight, predictable path. There will be days when you feel strong, empowered, and completely aligned with yourself. And there will also be days when doubt creeps in, when uncertainty clouds your vision, when you question everything. And here's the most important lesson. Those moments of doubt are not signs of failure. They are an essential part of the process, a necessary part of your growth, and they remind you again and again to return to yourself, to the wisdom of your own deep psychology, analytical psychology, psychological shadow, and the profound knowing that lives within your mind and consciousness. So today, ask yourself, are you ready to choose yourself, not just once, but over and over again, and to become the source of transformation not only in your own life but in the world around you? Because that is the gift and the challenge of this extraordinary journey. Carl Jung saw every challenge, every setback, not as punishment, but as an opportunity. An opportunity to deepen your connection with yourself, to reflect, to learn, and to grow. Because in deep psychology and analytical psychology, Each obstacle invites you to shed the old, step into something greater, and move closer to your true essence. And when the path feels uncertain, it's crucial to remember, you are not alone. Because while the journey toward authenticity can feel solitary at first, as you lean into your real self, you naturally begin to align with people, experiences, and resources that match your energy, turning the journey from a struggle into a homecoming. Think about someone like Mia, a friend of mine who worked for years as a lawyer simply because it was expected of her, but when she finally admitted to herself that she wanted to be a teacher, she faced enormous fear. Fear of judgment, fear of failure, fear of disappointing her family. Yet the moment she chose herself, she started encountering supportive mentors, unexpected opportunities, and moments of synchronicity that confirmed she was on the right path. And Jung would remind us that these are not mere coincidences but signs from the universe, affirmations that you are living in alignment with the psychology of the soul. So, let me ask you, what parts of your life truly reflect your authentic self? And what could you release right now to live with greater honesty and freedom? When you choose yourself, you are not just transforming your own life, you are creating a ripple effect, because your presence, your energy, your commitment to living truthfully inspires others without the need for preaching or persuasion. And this is the ripple Carl Jung understood deeply. The collective shift in mind and consciousness that happens when individuals awaken to their authentic selves. The greatest gift you can give yourself is to be unapologetically you, not the version molded by social conditioning, not the version edited to please others, but the real you, the one who exists when no one else is watching. And Jung taught that the true work of life lies not in searching outside of ourselves, but in unraveling the mysteries within. Because everything you are searching for has always been inside you. So here's your call to action. Life is too short to silence your dreams, to live under the weight of others' expectations. And the time to take the first step is now to confront your fears. Acknowledge your psychological shadow and listen to the quiet wisdom of your intuition. Every small step you take toward your authentic self is a victory, and you are not alone on this path. There is a community, a space, and a movement here that exists to remind you of your infinite potential. If this message speaks to you, don't let it stop here. Share it with someone who needs it, someone facing their own challenges, someone searching for clarity, because every comment, every interaction, every shared reflection helps spread this message to more people who are ready to reclaim their authentic selves. So, tell me, what part of this message touched your heart? What steps are you willing to take today to choose yourself and honor your true essence? Your words matter, not just to me, but to every person walking this same path, seeking their own truth, their own awakening. And if you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe and stay connected so you don't miss the next conversation in this shared journey. Because the greatest power of all lies in the simple, yet profound, act of choosing to be who you truly are. And remember, you are never alone, because change begins with you, and the world needs your authentic light more than ever.